Welcome to Pachehra Talks, and today's topic is securing Azure API management. So, in this topic, we are going to talk about all the various means we can secure Azure APIM or Azure API management. And before we start talking about security, let's talk about what it is first, just to refresh the memory because this is security specialist series and we will talk about security aspect of that particular service. But just to refresh our memory, let's talk about what it is first. So what is APIM? Or before that, what is API? So let's understand what is API first in a simple way. Let's suppose there are two applications. This is app 1 and this is app 2. Okay, this is app 2. Now let's suppose this is some weather application and this is the application who wants to utilize the temperature of that particular location. All right. So instead of building that weather application all along, what it does, it simply subscribe the APIs exposed by the API 1. So what API 1 has done, API 1 has created the APIs and exposed it. Okay, these APIs belong to this particular app 1. Now this app too needs that information to have in this particular application. You can also think from that airline ticket booking. You go from book my book my show or make my trip. All right, airlines. You could say this is app 1 for Indigo, but you're booking it from your make my trip. So make my trip will get that information from the APIs. Just an example. Similarly, this is, let's suppose, a weather application and you're building some application who needs the information of weather of that particular location at that particular point of time. So instead of building everything from scratch, or it can simply subscribe to these APIs and get that information from this APIs. So that's what the API is. And what is APIs? Not APIs, but what is APIM? API management. API management is something which will help you manage these APIs which are exposed by you internally or externally. So that is what the APIM is. So let's quickly go ahead and put it in words so that it will start make more sense. So what is APIM? APIM is a service that helps us manage, secure, and publish. Yes, you can also publish your APIs. APIs are application programming interfaces. And an API is a set of rules that allow software applications to communicate with each other, just like App 1 and App 2 example we took. APIM serves as a gateway that sits between your API and its consumers, ensuring that API traffic is handled securely and efficiently. But it's not just an API gateway, it also offers some other things as well. All right. So let's quickly see why should we use or why anyone should use APIM. There are multiple API gateway available in the market, third party vendor, things like that. So this is cloud native provided by Azure. It has multiple features. Let's go through those things. For example, APIM protects APIs from misuse. So it gives the security. And how? Because such as unauthorized access or denial of service attacks, it takes care of that. APIM offers features like authentication, authorization, and throttling. So we can write here authentication, authorization, and throttling. It offers more features as well. These are just for the making a point on the security. Then it provides insights. It provides insights into API usage, performance, and errors. This helps in understanding how APIs are being used and identifying areas of improvement, right? Then APIM ensures that your APIs can handle increasing amounts of traffic without performance degradation. So that means scalability. Then it also helps you to manage different versions of your APIs, making it easier to deprecate old versions and introduce new versions. So versioning and life cycle management, it offers that feature as well. Then if you want uh, to publish your APIs, it will help you create a product out of it and publish it into the developer portal. So it offers a developer portal where API documentation can be published, making it easier for developers to understand and use your APIs. So developer engagement. All right. Then it enables you to define policies that govern how API should be used, such as rate limiting, caching, and transformation. So it has policy enforcement like rate limiting, caching, and transformation. So those things, it offers all these wonderful features, and that's why we should opt for APIM. Now, as I said at the beginning, it's not just API gateway, it also offers certain other important stuff. Let's go and talk about those things. That means key concepts of APIM. So let's see the key concepts of APIM before we start digging into the security aspect of it. So the very first thing is it's not just API gateway, it has multiple things to offer like API gateway, products or a developer portal and policies. So very first thing is API gateway. Let's start with the API gateway. So it acts as a single entry point for API calls, managing traffic between API consumers and the backend services. And we have so many things that we can apply on the API gateway, like your authentication and other stuff. Then it also offers a API that means a collection of operations exposed to consumers. Each operation maps to an HTTP endpoint. Right? I'll show you in the diagram. We'll try to create something out of it. Let's go to the little bit theory first. Then the group of APIs that are packaged together and offered to developers, you can apply usage quotas and rate limits to that, and we call it products. So you can create your product as a group of APIs with all those policies like usage quotas and rate limiting, and apply and publish it into the developer portal. So developer portal. Now people can access developer portal. You can have login and subscribe to these products. You can have your own cost if you want for those products. Then you have policies, rules that you define to control how the API behaves. Policies can include things like authentication, rate limiting, and logging. So let's quickly see uh, how these things put in a aspect, in a perspective. All right. So what we need to do, first of all, let's suppose this is your APIM. Okay. This is your APIM. And here we have, let's suppose, multiple app services or APIs exposed in the application. So let's call them APIs for now. Okay, APIs. Let's call them API 1. This is another API. This is another API. And what we did, first of all, we get all these APIs into the APIM. How? By adding the HTTP endpoint of these APIs. Okay. Then once we have the API here, we apply policies to control how our API should behave. For example, we can require API keys for authentication or limit the number of requests user can make. Those policies get applied. So what we are doing here actually, we are creating a product out of these APIs that we have published here. Okay, we can simply say these APIs are here. So we have created APIs. Okay. APIs, and all these APIs are here now. A representation is here. Okay, for this, like this. Okay, so we have these APIs right here, and we have applied what policies and created the product out of it. Okay, so we have a product out of it. And what we do with the product? We will publish it. Where we will publish it? We will publish it into the developer portal. So this is your developer portal. And here we have our product so that people can subscribe to it. And how will they get the access? Through the API keys. And all these API, how they will use it as per the policies defined. Okay, so that's how it usually works. And we have Azure Monitor, and APIM also provides dashboard and reports that show your API is being used, how they being used here. Now let me put this uh, into this side for now. Then we'll take it further when we start protecting all of it. Now, there are few use cases I would like to talk about. The very first thing is when we use it, this particular service, the very first is internal APIs, because we can also spin up into a virtual network. So companies often use APIs internally to enable communication between different services. APIM can help secure these internal APIs and provide monitoring and analytics very easily. Okay. Then we have integration with the vendor or the partner. Partner integration can also be done through APIM. How? Because when sharing APIs with the external partners, APIM ensures that access is secure and controlled. It also provides detailed analytics on how partners are using the APIs through the developer portal. And these policies will help you understand all that, right? Then we have public APIs. Now, for companies offering public APIs to developers, APIM provides the necessary tools to manage usage, ensure security, and engage with the developer community through the developer portal. Then you must have heard about this microservice architecture all the way around, right? So in microservice architecture, we know microservices are talking to each other through the APIs. So we can have a centralized management through APIM to manage all those communication securely and optimizing your API traffic as well. So those things can easily be done through the APIM. Okay, let me take this and put it here. So there are a couple of things just to familiar ourselves with the topic. All right. Now, let's suppose there is somebody sitting here, okay, with his laptop and trying to access our APIs which are exposed through here. The very first thing is this will go like this, and here we also have something which is called API gateway, right? This is our API gateway. So request will come to any of the APIs that this particular application is trying to access, or user is trying to access, or a developer is trying to access. This particular request will go to this API gateway, and all those policy like authentication, authorization, throttling is happening here, inbound and outbound policies. And once it is verified, then it will send the request to the respective API. Okay. Oh, all right. Now let's see how we would like to protect our APIM. Or we can have a little scenario just to consolidate everything that we have learned as of now. So imagine you have developed a weather API that provides weather data to various application. How you can use Azure API management to secure and manage this API. So the very first thing is create an API. We have to define we have to define API in the API, just like this one. Okay, specifying the endpoints for accessing the weather data. Let's suppose this is one of the weather application as per this scenario. Now it has been it is there now because we have imported this through the specifying the endpoint of this API. Now this API is here. Now what we do, we will apply policies. So apply security policies to require API keys for accessing this particular APIs. Who is accessing? This guy is accessing here. This is a client or consumer. So along with this API keys, we can also set the rate limits to prevent any single user from overwhelming the service. Okay, so once these policies are applied to this particular API of weather app, what we'll do now, we'll create a product out of it and publish it into the dev portal. So publish the API to a product and make it available through the developer portal. Now developers can sign up, get API keys and start using the weather API. Whosoever go and access, subscribe, get the keys over the email and start accessing this API via API gateway. So that's how we can utilize this APIM with this simple scenario. Now, APIM analytics also help you to monitor API usage, identify popular endpoints, and detect any unusual activity. Just trying to put it in perspective. Okay. Now it's time to secure it. So let's secure it. Okay. Let me put it here. All right. So it's time to secure. That is the main topic of this video. So the very first thing is somebody is creating this service and someone is accessing this service. Somebody is taking care of doing the administration of this service. So identity and access management is something that we should be worried about or taking care from the security aspect. So very first thing is use Azure AD or Entra ID for RBAC. Okay. First of all is RBAC, so that somebody is creating an administration should have the least privilege principle applied there, and only the one who's supposed to have the access should have the access limited. Then this is all about the administrations. What about the people who are accessing this? It could be from the Azure AD internal users, as we talked about internal APIs. So use Azure AD users or developer groups maybe for people who can access it through the developer portal. If you are exposing it public APIs for somebody else outside, like partner integration or for the consumers, you could also use B2C, right? So identity you should have in place, very robust through Azure AD or Entra ID. Now the second thing is, once the identity part is done, we should have taken care of the there's one more thing, API keys. I just forgot. API keys is also something help you build the security further, because when we expose your API after the subscription, once the developer subscribe, it gets an email and gets the subscription keys or API access keys on the email or any other means that you have utilized. So keys will also help you secure it. Then we need to think about the network security. What is in the network security? The very first thing is we talked about, we can easily create in a virtual private network, right? It is private and isolated, so it is already secure. You can also apply all those features of virtual network that we usually apply for any other compute. Then we have IP restrictions on the service itself. You can use IP restriction or IP filtering, block the IPs that you don't want the access or allow only the IPs that you want the access, right? And then we have something called private endpoint as well. If you would like to uh, create a public and integrate with the virtual network, that can also be done. Then we need to protect the data. Our identity is protected, who is accessing and how the network is working. Then we need to take care of the data. How can we protect the data? The simple thing is encryption. So we want all the traffic is HTTPS. So we have to enable, we need to ensure data is encrypted both in transit or at rest. So encrypt, we need to enforce HTTPS on the API. We can simply also have WAF, right, through app gateway. So even in this architecture right here, we should have another Azure resource, which is app gateway. Okay, in a ideal architecture which has WAF. Okay, so all those requests which is coming from here will go to the app gateway first, It will scan as per the OWASP of the web vulnerabilities, and then it will pass into the API gateway. Then it will do the authentication and all other policies that we have applied. Then it will go to the APIs. That's how the traffic flow happens. So there is another protection here, WAF, right? Then apart from this, we should also always have something called monitoring and logging, always a part of the security. We should enable the diagnostic logging through any other Azure resource. Just go to the resource, go to the diagnostics and enable it. Diagnostic logs and enable the logging. We can set up alerts to the Azure monitor as well. Then we should also enable or use threat protection. Okay. Threat protection. If you're wondering what is threat protection here, just give me a minute, I'll tell you. So we need to prevent a single user from overwhelming the API, like protect API from abuse and attacks. How can we do that? Simply implementing rate limiting policies to restrict the number of requests. Okay, that also is another monitoring feature in the subscription as well. If you want somebody to use your APIs and apply some cost there. We also have IP filtering and blocking that will also help us block suspicious IP address or use IP filtering to allow or deny access based on the IP addresses. So IP filtering and blocking. Right. Then these are some things, some wonderful things that we should use to protect or secure our APIM. Okay. Now, apart from this, whenever we think broadly, we have like Azure Key Vault, we have restrictions, segmentations. Here we already talk about WAF, right? Managed identities, if it's talking to the internal resources for authentication, all those things. But if you talk about particularly regarding APIM, so these are some wonderful things that we should keep in mind to protect or secure our APIM or our APIs. Well, with this, I would like to end the video. Well, thank you for watching. I hope it was informative for all of you.